Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your normal co-host here, Greg Thompson, and this week we are bringing on our favorite Tennessee Titans expert, and this says Aaron Quinn.
Yeah, that's me. I do it all the time. I cover the Titans part-time when I'm not Zay Jones truthing out there on the internet. I'm also a Titans co-host.
No, yeah, how we doing, Aaron?
Good, man.
How are your mentions? They've been really entertaining to watch from afar.
Yeah, it's been fun for the most part. Some people are a little frustrating and over the top, but just got to learn to move on from those guys. But no, it's pretty good mostly. I'm the same way with no matter what it is I'm talking about. If I can convert one or two people over to my way of thinking, I feel like I've won, and I'll continue to be insufferable. And I've at least gotten two people to agree with me or change their mind. So that's all I need.
That's a win. That's a win in my book.
Absolutely,
I've just enjoyed poking and egging it on from afar. It's been very entertaining.
Oh, I enjoy it too. It gives me more clout. If you poke it, other people are going to see it. So I bring on the poking from everyone.
I got you. No, it's been fun for anyone who wasn't sure. Aaron actually did put some legitimate time and effort into creating a thread that showed some of the emotional reaction and honestly overreaction to Zay Jones, and assuming that you could read into his effort, his abilities on the field were not nearly as dramatic as what people made it out to be, and that Aaron's stance of saying he was merely an adequate receiver turned into him being the president of the fan club.
And I love the guy.
The best part was Zay Jones' dad really did tweet to you about how much he appreciated your work. It was great.
And he retweeted every single image, and I got Zay liked the post, and his brother liked all the images, all the gifs too. So I feel like I'm the official, maybe I think it's the fourth brother of the Jones family.
I like it.
Like I'm the adopted fourth brother. But no, real quick before we end the show, because Twitter's a hard outlet, I did do a disclaimer of like how I felt. But my problem is, and it's really all players, when people just get on and say a guy sucks or a guy is trash or whatever it is, like these guys are all NFL players, and maybe it's from my brief time studying with the Scouting Academy or all my years now working with Eric. As a fan, I used to kind of do that too, but I've changed how I approach talking about players. And really, it's hard to say any guys that are in the NFL are trash or garbage at football. And I think that you kind of have to take a look at the film because the stats don't always tell the answer. But I tried to be fair to the players and not just trash them all the time. So that's really where the Zay Jones thing came from. It's not my love for Zay. It's that I think it's unfair that we call guys trash at what they do professionally because it's not always their fault, the results that we see.
No, and I thought you were very even-handed about it. And again, I had a little bit of fun with it as well, but I thought it was really well done. So
Thank you.
I thought you did a nice job being able to lay that out. For anyone who would like to see more great in-depth work, make sure you stop over to cover1.net. Check out what we have going on. Awesome updates every game from Fernando. Breakdowns from Eric are always the best, being able to walk through everything that's out there. Even people who are football fanatics and love the game, you learn so much being able to watch what he does. It's just incredible. You get to listen to people like Aaron and I ramble, and you get to hear some of our friends, Kevin and Jason, doing the same, and just a lot of good things going on. And one of my favorite parts is being able to be in the Cover One Premium channel Slack and being able to use that as my news source. In case anyone can't tell, I'm here in another beautiful hotel room, working my way around the world, and that I can use the premium Slack channel to keep me up to date on what's going on, about what's going on with the Bills. And anytime I even try to make an update, somebody else beats me to the channel with it. It's incredible. It's like a contest when news is breaking. So, Aaron, what are your thoughts on what we've built as a community there?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I've been doing this now with Eric for 3 years. This is my third year with the Cover One podcast, and just adding the Slack channel has just really increased the community aspect of it. Tonight is a really fun night to be in there because obviously the last week was super defeating, all that emotional build up. And for me, at least, I think, and a lot of Bills fans, we were so excited early in the week, and that just it kind of exhausting after game time, and you lose that game. It's a close game. And this week, I just really haven't ramped up, even though it's a super important game, and we'll talk about that. I haven't ramped up in the same way. And so tonight with the Stephon Diggs watching stuff on Twitter, it's really actually a fun night in the Slack community because everybody's finding the funniest tweets and the funniest replies and throwing those in there for me to go troll on people. So not only is there good fun analytical talk, but there's also the fun and the community aspect. And somebody the other day reached out to me in DMs and said, "Hey, Aaron, I love all the stuff that you guys do a cover one and all the guys that are there? How do I learn more about football so that I can talk about it in those same ways? And I said, oh, get Pat Kerwin's book. Here's another couple books, some resources, but you should really join the premium Slack channel because Eric has a film channel in there and he really breaks the game down and answers really any questions that people have. And some of the questions everybody comes up with like blow me away. I don't even see the game the way everybody sees it. So being able to have those discussions, and I said that's really how you're going to learn about football. So anyone out there that's kind of looking to learn about the game, I think the premium Slack channel in itself of the premium membership is a really great way to kind of learn more about the game of football.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really fun going into a game like today, where, as we've said, some of the folks here, it maybe at the surface doesn't seem like the most exciting matchup for the Bills, but I think you and I have both laid out some things about why this actually is a pretty critical matchup for Buffalo. In that, how do we respond to our first loss of 2019? Between the preseason games and starting 3-0. A lot of buildup, a game at home that the fans really wanted. How are we going to react to that? Going up against a team that's been either in the playoffs or a winning record for 3 straight years now, that is on the road and not an easy place to play, and going into a bye week where whatever the result of this is going to have a reverberating effect, through the franchise and through the players for 2 full weeks. I think that there's maybe a little bit more gravitas to this game than what the average fan might think.
Yeah, I said it on Twitter earlier. I think it's like a tone-setting, kind of a season-defining game. This is kind of that moment if they are a playoff team, or Howard on WGR has predicted 12-4 the last 2 weeks. If they're a 12-4 team, I think you're going to look back at this game as really that pivotal catalyst that they overcame the loss. They didn't drop back-to-backs. You can't be 11-win, 12-win team if you're dropping back-to-back losses, especially AFC losses. This game's probably going to be a tiebreaker, another team fighting for that wild card at the end of the year. If they're hovering around 10, 11 wins as well, you got to have the tiebreaker on them. So this game, it has big implications on the season. With all that said, I don't think it's going to be an entertaining game, especially for the average NFL fan. I think it's going to be really boring. But even for the fans of these two teams, it might not be the most dramatic and exciting game of the season for either fan base.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong, and I think that it's fun. I know you and I have both looked back at a couple of games leading up to this, kind of doing our normal preparation, and I can't lie, it wasn't easy to look through and watch. But the Titans are an interesting, I'm going to say, one-sided team, and I don't mean one-sided in the sense of offense or defense. I mean that they are built really, really well for one style of football. And in games where the Titans get up early and get a lead, they have a really good secondary that can protect against the pass. They have some solid pass rushers in a Cameron Wake and a Harold Landry. They have a monster offensive line who can just lean on people. And then they have the biggest jackhammer in the NFL in Derrick Henry, with a mobile quarterback who can run for a third down conversion here or there. However, if they don't get a lead and they get behind early, they don't have a great pass blocking offensive line. They don't have nuanced, advanced receivers. They have some young athletes who have some potential in the future. They don't have a very stout defense from stopping the run and some things like that. That all of a sudden, the other side of that coin, if you get up early on them, you can run away with a game or two and be able to really pull away. So I think that this is going to be an ugly game, but I also think that the team that comes out to an early lead could have a pretty significant advantage.
Yeah, I found this team, and we talked about it a little bit here before we went on air. I feel like this reminds me of McDermott's first year. That team with Tyrod and a good defense and not a great offense, and couldn't come back. That was the big knock on them, right? They couldn't come back in games. But you still had to respect Tyrod Taylor. And that team really could go toe-to-toe with anybody and beat them. And they were dangerous enough and ended up being a playoff team in that season. They just kind of remind me a little bit of that. And I think you're right. I think you nailed it. If they're down early, that's going to be tough. They do get Taylor Lewan back. So I think some of the blocking that we saw in those games, I'm not sure what to expect with his return. And obviously he hasn't played with Saffold at all. I don't think it's maybe some in the preseason and training camp. But then he was gone on suspension. He was away from the team here for the last 4 weeks. So it'll be interesting what his impact, because I do think he's their best offensive player, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Then offensive line, I think they're getting back their best offensive player. I don't know how that impacts what I saw on film versus what we expect. I don't expect it to be significant or tilt the scales too much for them, but it's something to keep an eye on and that we haven't seen yet this year.
Yeah, I mean, they run such a conservative offense. They're not putting Mariota at risk very often anyways. But anytime you're adding one of, in my mind, the top 2 or 3 offensive tackles in the NFL, that's a positive thing. He is a monster of a player that plays with one of the most significant mean streaks we've seen since a young, Pro Bowl level Richie Incognito, and he's a much better athlete than Incognito is. So he's the kind of player that certainly is going to be a problem and going to help open up some holes. And I'm sure that they're going to try to run behind there. I guess the silver lining might be, I guess I'll take a rusty Taylor Lewan that's just working his way back into game shape and into his first game action than a, kind of regular 5 weeks in Taylor Lewan.
Yep.
But, in the grand scheme of things, it's certainly it's not a positive for the Bills that they're getting their best offensive player back. But I agree with you. I don't know that it's a specifically game tilting change that's there.
No, and right now on their injury report, they're actually pretty clean. They're getting Lawan back. Their guard, Pamphile, I think that's how you say his name, was questionable. And then today, Delaney Walker did not participate. But I don't know if that was a veteran rest day or if it's an actual injury. Wednesday gets a little weird, so we don't know. I would expect Delaney Walker to be playing in this game, so I'm not going to really focus on that. But they come in pretty clean injury-wise, and they do have some pieces that I like on their offense. I do like Tajay Sharp. I do like A.J. Brown. But like you said, young but super athletic. When I look at the matchup, offense and defense, they're healthy. They're coming in. They just had a big game, although we talked about it off air here. Atlanta's not the biggest measuring stick. So they were able to put up some points on a really bad team, an undisciplined team. I don't see really anything outside of maybe Derrick Henry getting loose for a big day that really scares me, just because Buffalo's D, after what they did in last week's matchup, I don't know that there is really a team, unless they come out and have a really bad day. I feel like going forward the rest of this year, there isn't a team that they don't match up with. Maybe the Browns have more star power on offense if they can get it together later in the season. Maybe the Cowboys. But the rest of the teams, man, I feel pretty good that there isn't really a matchup that a team like the Titans can really expose against any of the levels of this Buffalo defense.
Yeah, I agree. I think man for man, from a talent standpoint, I don't think there's any offense that can scare this defense. The one thing I will say is if we see some negative plays early, if we see some turnovers, if we see a special teams touchdown, if we see a pick six, if we see a punt block for a touchdown, something silly like that lets them get up early. I do think the one flaw for this defense is that if we're in a position where a team is in a game script where they can continue to lean on us, we're not a huge defense. Besides Jordan Phillips, most guys on that team are at or below the average of their size. That Matt Milano is the size of a lot of safeties in the NFL, that we have a lot of guys who are not enormous players, there. I mean, obviously Tremaine Edmonds is a big guy. But that I do think you can lean on this defense, and I do think you can wear them down to get them tired, and that if we had some really unfortunate plays and a negative game script, that the Titans do have the offensive line and the monster of a running back in Derrick Henry, that I could see that becoming a problem in a scenario like that. Now, obviously, I don't think that's likely. I don't think that's the kind of game we're going to see. And I really kind of like the fact that we're coming off a frustrating loss and they're coming off a win and coming back home. And I kind of don't mind that scenario where we're hungry and coming in to kind of get that fix there. But that's the one path I could see, is if we see an unfortunate negative play that lets them get ahead and they really win the time of possession by a significant amount and are really leaning on us, I could see that taking a toll late in the third into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think I agree with the logic of how you get there. I just think, even though at times this team can probably be physically unmatched in a scenario like that, I really think they just play. You saw some of the clips that Eric posted. They play such a unit defense, 1 of 11. They really have embodied that 1 of 11 mindset. And even though maybe sometimes you're not as physically superior as the guy going next to you, but if everybody's doing their job in the defense and the coordinator is calling sound plays and you're seeing what the offense is doing, I think that puts you at least in a position to make it difficult on them. And I think that's really what we saw in the Patriots game was Tom Brady's a smarter quarterback. He's got skill, probably the best skill guys we've gone up against in Gordon and Amendola and some of the running backs there. But the unit played as a whole, everybody was in position. So Tom Brady wasn't really able to find those. Tom Brady thrives off one guy makes a mistake. He's finding that mistake and he's taking advantage of that mistake. This defense doesn't really do that, and they haven't done it so far this year. A little bit maybe in that Bengals game, which that would concern you. I think the Bengals and Titans are probably similar type teams. So if the Bengals can gain some yards on us, probably the Titans can too. So I just feel really good about what they're at. And I agree with you, coming off a loss, I think especially the defense, because they've held us in so many games. I think they really want to come out and prove, one, that they're elite, because it's not being talked about enough. Even after the massive performance that they had this week, I feel like it's still not like national news like it should be. It seems from the interviews you get, there is a chip on their shoulder this week to prove, hey, we barely lost to the Patriots, and it was sloppy, but that's not who we are. We're not a sloppy team that just our defense lets us hang in games. We're a good team that can come in and put away a team, and I do think that mindset's there, and that helps. And they are going into a bye, so I think that they all understand the ramifications of we got to win and end this first part of the season on a high note.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that it's critical. And let's switch over to our side of the ball and look at the Bills and what we've kind of gone into here. I know that there was some interesting items on the injury report today.
Pretty much all offense except for Taryn.
Yeah. So a couple, obviously, Dean Marlowe, Patrick DeMarco, and obviously right. Josh Allen we'll get to are all in concussion protocol. So that was interesting that I don't think DeMarco was listed until today.
Yeah.
So that I'm going to have to guess. I have no idea. I'm assuming that means he self-reported symptoms.
Yeah, he probably woke up Monday morning or something and had some symptoms, or maybe on the flight or drive home or something. But it didn't appear. I looked back through the game. I didn't see any collisions where he came off the field or anything. So I don't know where it happened.
Yeah. It's a couple positive ones. Having limited participation for Taron Johnson is a step forward. Mm-hmm. Having limited participation, but some positive beat reporters talking about Devin Singletary was certainly a positive step.
McDermott said he was close.
Yeah.
On Sunday, he said he was very close to playing. So that I assume that means that he's closer the more days that pass.
Yeah. Well, and then guys that have been healthy, well, it certainly would be logical. The pieces that were either in red non-contact jerseys last week or were healthy scratches, we saw full participant from Spencer Long, from Robert Foster. Trey's played the whole time, but he was a full participant, no red jersey. So some really positive steps. I know I was a little confused that Ty Nsekhe was out and did not practice at all, and they listed it as ankle, not as veteran rest. So I certainly would like to see him back out there tomorrow and Friday to be able to get back into it, at least limited both days. But anything before we get into the obvious one, and Josh, any other thoughts on the injury report?
The Robert Foster stuff's interesting to me. Obviously, I've been having these debates about receivers and who's an upgrade to Zay Jones here all week. And there's been a lot of talk about Robert Foster. And I was adamant in that kind of thread and context that I'm very upset that Robert Foster hasn't taken that step forward. And the injury news on Foster has really kind of been mysterious, right? He wasn't doing well in the summer. Sean McDermott called him out in a press conference, but then it came out like a week later that he had been dealing with some turf toe injury, and maybe that was why, but then that turf toe lingered. But now they're kind of reporting that he's strained a groin, perhaps. I really haven't gotten any good answers as to what's going on with Robert Foster. None of the beat guys seem to have really pressed this at all with either McDermott or Dable. So we're not getting answers as to really where Robert Foster is at and why isn't he developing into the guy that he finished the season with last year. And if he's not that guy, are they kind of thinking about moving on from this guy? So Robert Foster, kind of seeing him just floating around on this injury report is something that's interesting to me. I'd like to know more about it and why it's preventing him from getting on the field.
Yeah, I do think that some guys that we respect did report that this was way more of an injury scratch last week than a healthy scratch
Hmm.
from a performance standpoint. So I respect that, and I'm going to trust that that's the case. It shows that he's a full participant today and not limited by anything. So I'm going to look for him to be ready and active, and if we see anything out of the ordinary now, I think then you can read into that a little bit more. But we certainly are going to want to see him take another step forward. And I think that matters in some things. I think he was starting to make a name for himself a little bit on special teams.
Hmm.
And now having Corey Thompson be out, that's an area that is a little concerning. I know Mo Alexander was a little bit questionable last week, and that we might have had more than 7 guys who in a normal week might have been on that inactive list. So I've been a little surprised we haven't seen more action on the linebacker market to be able to potentially bring someone in there. But yeah, I think besides those guys, there weren't any big surprises on the injury report, except for that it seemed like Josh Allen was a little bit further along than anticipated. I know some folks, there's a lot of speculation on what stage is what, but some folks like our friends over at Banged Up Bills said that, going through individual drills, doing throwing motions, doing one-on-ones, and going through that in many terms is stage 4 of the
Right.
concussion protocol. So that was certainly at least encouraging that it sounds like there is a possibility Josh could play this weekend.
Absolutely. I do think all people, and I tweeted out, and I think people thought I was serious, that he's for sure playing on Sunday. I think a lot of people are maybe jumping the gun on it
Yes.
based on just tweets and videos and things like that. I do think that he's probably further along because I don't know that the team would allow him to have his helmet on. And there's a video of him racing Barkley full speed. I think that they would kind of like limit some of that activity if he wasn't close to that stage 4. But that doesn't mean that Tamari is going to wake up and be in stage 5. Stage 4 could last through till Monday. There is no set timelines on when guys pass through the stages. It's all about the testing and grading and the baselines that they have to get back to. So just because he's there doesn't mean he's going to be a full participant tomorrow or even on Friday. And if honestly, if he's not a full participant Friday, I think you're going to have a hard time here. If he's not a full participant tomorrow, I think you really got to start putting a game plan together and really working it with Matt Barkley. Obviously, anytime Josh Allen's able to go, you're gonna go with Josh Allen. You can come up with the plays, but anyway, long story short, just because he may be at 4 doesn't mean he's a go for Sunday. But it was some good news for Bills fans who had nothing for 3 days about this. So at least we got some good news today.
Yeah, I would say that the only thing that we could have gotten today was negative news that let us know he's for sure not going to play. So
Right.
we could have gotten news. And I think if we were told that he still wasn't able to rejoin the team, wasn't able to be in the position room or doing the film study, then that would tell me that, hey, he's not going to be able to
Yeah.
cobble together
Stuck
the
in a
steps
black
needed.
room with no lights. That
Well,
would be bad.
yeah, yes, I mean to that degree, but any of the other steps, I think the fact that he
Yeah,
was able to do game planning, able to do film study, able to
for
do
sure.
individual drills, that doesn't mean he's going to play. That means that's on the table. That
Hmm.
means that is a possibility still. I agree with you. I think he has to be a full participant for at least a practice to be able to make that feasible, especially with the bye coming up right after it. I think that makes it so much easier to take a conservative stance that, hey, if we're not sure at all, we have the bye to be
Yeah.
able to get things right, and get it ready. I do think they have legitimate confidence in a guy like Matt Barkley.
Yeah.
I don't think they want him to be the starter for a long stretch of games, but in a game that I think we feel like we can be competitive and this defense gives us a shot versus any opponent, I believe that they feel comfortable they can go into this game with Matt Barkley with no anticipation of not being competitive and ready to win.
Hmm.
So I certainly could see that there. But right now, I don't think we've been shown anything that tells us Josh is going to play. So I am under the impression that Matt Barkley is going to be our quarterback Sunday as of today.
Yeah, until I hear otherwise, I'm assuming that this matchup is going to be a Matt Barkley matchup. And honestly, like, not to say I don't care who the quarterback is, because obviously you do. The way, from me watching the Titans, and I hope that the coaches kind of feel the same way, I really feel like the path to victory against this team is we talked about our defense and getting up on them early and then pounding the rock. I want to see more touches this year for Frank Gore and Devin Singletary if healthy. And if you have to throw it, give some short pass stuff to Knox and Yeldon out of the backfield and stuff like that. But I want to keep it very conservative. And I think that's the path really to victory against a team like the Titans, who are well coached. They put the ball on the ground a few times, but they don't really turn the ball over a lot. They're pretty well schemed. They're going to make a few mistakes, but they're not really shooting themselves in the foot a ton this year. But I do see a ton of opportunities in almost every game to run right up the middle. You can't really run like the zone read stuff with them. They're pretty good along the outside, but running right up the middle. And so even if Josh is the quarterback, I still want to see Frank Gore and Singletary getting 30 plus carries between the two of them. And I'd like to see, a lot of that going right down the middle of this defense. And I think if you can score a couple points early and then just run the ball out, I think that's a good path to victory for this Bills team.
I think that makes a ton of sense. And I could see that I think a lot of fans hear, oh, run up the middle. That sounds like it's 2 yards in a cloud of dust. Well, matter of fact, both of those big plays by Frank Gore, the 22-yarder and the 41-yarder,
right through,
were inside traps dead up the middle.
Yep.
And that especially, I actually think it's crazy to say Devin Singletary playing is not more important than Josh Allen playing. But I do think that having Devin Singletary with Matt Barkley makes this a tolerable game. That if we have Frank Gore getting his 15 to 18 carries and pounding it up the middle and keeping them on their toes and then hitting them with Devin Singletary off tackle and in space, I do think that can make a huge difference in this game and really be able to, allow our defense to bring us home and to be able to kind of carry the day.
Yeah, I mean, just everything I was watching tells me that's kind of a good path to victory and that some of that's going to be there and it's going to be easy. And that's a really good way, too, after the game. If, say, Josh Allen does come back in, the game that he had is demoralizing, even though I thought he was coming back in the third quarter. This would be a good kind of way to get his feet wet again. We don't have to come out and rely on him to beat their defense. It's going to be available in the running game, and that's going to open up some things for him. That'll open up some. I know the analytics guys aren't going to agree with me, but when you do run the ball, it does still open up some play action. You don't have to run the ball to open up play action, but it does work because they are going to start biting on it a little bit harder. So it opens up some things for Josh Allen. So I think it will be, if they establish that run game, I think it'll be a good opportunity for him to build up a little confidence also if they're able to win the game going into the bye week. But this is not a defense to sleep on. They have playmakers at every level of the defense. I don't think they have the type of defense, obviously, the Patriots have. And I think they're similar in the scheme.
They have half of the old Patriots defense.
They're a poor man's Patriots defense.
But sometimes very literally with Logan Ryan and Michael Butler.
Yeah, actually, they probably pay more to have the poor man's defense because the Patriots, those guys that they ended up with. But they scheme up a lot of the same ways, which could cause Josh Allen some problems. They send waves of blitzes. They do a little bit of the amoeba look along the line, showing you different looks from what they're actually doing. And that caused Josh Allen problems. But I think the advantage versus what we just saw the Patriots, and the Patriots have better personnel at every level, and I bet they play better as a team unit. So I think that even if they show us some of the same looks that the Patriots showed us and they see that on film as an opportunity, oh, the Patriots did this, we can do that. I don't know that they have the personnel to make it as scary as what we just went through 3 days ago.
No, I agree. So some names for Bills fans to watch for. Obviously, you guys are familiar with Cameron Wake, a longtime guy in Miami. He's there as their outside linebacker, and they're 3-4, but he's a pass rusher, still coming off the edge. Rashaan Evans was a middle linebacker out of Alabama.
I love Rashaan Evans.
Last year, a lot of fans, if we didn't trade up for Tremaine Edmonds, I think it's very possible that Rashaan Evans could be a Buffalo Bill if we had stuck at pick 21 there. Harold Landry was another guy that was a second-round pick out of Boston College. He's the other pass rusher off the edge, opposite Cameron Wake. And the best player on their defense is their free safety, Kevin Byard. And Kevin Byard is very similar to the Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer realm of way more underappreciated than how good he is. I think there's an argument to be made that he's one of, if not the best safety in the NFL, and just doesn't get that respect that's out there. He is someone that cannot be trifled with here, and that if Josh does get back in play and tries to take some of those deep shots that did against the Patriots where you don't see the safety floating over, Kevin Byard will break on that ball and will
Yeah.
go get it. And you have to know where he is on every single play.
Yeah, and he's a guy actually to look to for Bills fans for his contract, because I think Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are both looking at his contract and saying that tell Brandon Bean, watch us and see what we do when we play them, and compare the type of players that we are. Jarrell Casey's another one, although doing this show, having played the Titans a couple of seasons now in a row, he's not the player he was when I first started doing this show and talking about him. He's not as dominant as he was the first time the Bills went up against him, but he's still a player that you got to keep an eye on. He's a vet who knows what he's doing. But unfortunately for him today, or this year, there has been a lot going right up the middle through him, which is not something that I saw in previous years. Watching this team, he pretty much dominated all interior offensive linemen I didn't see that as much this year. So I don't know if there's anything going on with Jarrell Casey, but still a name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and obviously a guy that's getting a little bit later into his career. He's only in his 8th year, but still a little bit further along than where he'd been before. So I think there is talent on this defense. You know,
Absolutely.
Logan Ryan, Malcolm Butler, both names Bills fans are familiar with from the Patriots. Kenny Vaccaro had a good run there in the Saints for a while. Adoree Jackson was a number 1 pick a while ago, now
Crazy
playing
athlete.
the nickel for them and their punt returner. So, I mean, there's still some talent on this team, and I don't think we can take them lightly. I do think there's some Bills fans who are overlooking this game significantly or chalking this up as an automatic win. Again, they've had a winning record for 3 straight years. They've been in the playoffs. They won a playoff game a year ago, or 2 years ago. This is a good team that the Bills need to take seriously and be able to approach this. But I do think we are set up well to be able to take this game in Tennessee. We are an underdog. The Titans are favored by 3 points at home. I don't think that's unreasonable, especially with the question around Josh Allen and that whether he's going to play here. So anytime you have the possibility of a backup quarterback on the road, that is something that bettors are going to hammer all the time because the odds are that you're going to come out in favor there. I think the fact that we have an above average backup quarterback in Matt Barkley, we have a run game that can travel, we have a big mauling offensive line that if we put them in that position, and we have, what I think is darn close to the best defense in the NFL, that's going to keep us in any game. So I still think that we have a good chance to be able to approach this game. Are you ready to give a prediction on what you think is going to happen in this game?
Yeah, I am. I think you hit a lot of the points I was going to make. I think this defense, as far as when I look at matchups across the board, the defense, our defense versus their offense is a huge disadvantage, in my opinion, for the Titans. I think our offense is pretty fair matchup against their defense. I don't think there's really much of an advantage either way there. Maybe I think their special teams is a little bit of an advantage to them right now just because
Sure.
of how poorly Bills special teams have been. So I'm going to give them that advantage. But
I
ultimately,
assume everyone has an advantage on their special teams.
yeah, right now. I do think that the Bills are going to pull this out. I think it's going to be an ugly game, like I said. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Right now, I think I have it at 17-13 Buffalo. But I think it's going to have to come with our defense has been fantastic. We got the turnover in the red zone from Micah Hyde, and we had a couple picks from Zay, but they haven't made the flash plays like I'd like to see. We haven't scored on defense yet, anything like that. The Titans also haven't turned the ball over. I think it's a perfect alchemy. They're going to talk about that all game, and the announcers are going to jinx Mariota, and he's going to have a big interception or a big pick six or something like that. And our defense hasn't had that big strip sack return for a touchdown. So I do think the defense finally has one of those flash plays that gets them on ESPN and maybe gets the media talking about them a little bit more because everyone talks about the Bears, but that's because Khalil Mack makes big strip sack plays and exciting plays, and the Bills just haven't done that yet. So I think their ability to do that gives them the edge in this game, and I think that they win 17-13.
I like that. I think that's really in line with what makes sense here. The Bills-Titans game has the lowest over/under total in the entire NFL this week. It's the only game under 40. They have it set at 39, and I think that's because they don't ever like to go far beyond that 42 to 45 window that most games fall within. I think 39 is way too high. I think that the possibility that we play Matt Barkley means we might run the ball a ton. The Titans are not in a position to run up the score on this defense in any circumstance. I actually think there's a possibility the Bills can hold them without scoring a touchdown, but that I do think they're good enough to get good field position here and there, a solid return. I don't think we can hold Derrick Henry with no yards the whole game. I think he's too big and powerful not to break free once or twice. So I do think they're going to score a couple times. I do think the Bills are going to score a few times as well, but not very high. I actually think this is going to be like a 13-9 game.
Yep.
I could see both teams kicking 2-3 field goals. The Bills maybe getting one score that eventually Devin Singletary, wiggles loose for something. But I'm going to predict that the Bills pull away with this 13-9. And potentially are getting out to an early lead and then milking it away. And I think you're spot on that 30 carries sounds about right. I'd love to see it north of 30
Yeah.
in total carries, and that I could see this being a game that the Bills put together 175, maybe even 200 yards rushing, in that kind of game that we really start to salt away and lean on our defense.
So I think ultimately what we're saying is anybody that's planning on watching the game on Sunday, make sure you have really good food and really good beer because the game might not be really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I got some bad news.
Yeah.
It's not going to be great.
So let's get into our bets. We got 2 bets on the table right now. That doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. Vegas changes, odds change. So we might find some more bets here this week to go with. I think we've only got the 2 bets. I have us down right now. I have Mariota has 0 interceptions for the year. So he's averaging 0 for the game. So I had him. I came to Greg and I said, will you take the over on 0.5 interceptions for Mariota? And Greg is taking the over. So even though I do think the Bills are going to cause a turnover, Greg's down quite a bit right now in the betting, so I wanted to give him a chance to start to build his league back up. So he's taken the over on 0.5 interceptions for Marcus Mariota, and that's a 3-point bet that we're making. And then we have Henry, who I think I said he was averaging 77 yards a game, yeah. I believe.
Yeah.
We have him at 79.5 for 4 points. I'm taking the over. I think he gets over 79.5. You're taking the under. If he gets the under, if he's under 79 or even his average, I think there's no chance that the Bills lose that game.
I agree. I think that that's the only path that the Titans are able to take there is that he gets rolling and is able to break off a big one. And he is a monster. I mean, he's the biggest running back in the NFL for a reason. He is a monster. And
he's not just big. He's still flashes. I saw one play, I think it was in the Atlanta game, where there was nothing up the middle, and he bounced it back across the other side and ran over a cornerback on his way to like an 8-yard gain. It's pretty impressive what he is able to do when he gets going. Hopefully the Buffalo defense, like I said, can play that unit and just kind of keep him in check and gang tackle.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, and I think that it's something that we're able to. Hopefully, it's not the fact that you're trying to stop Derrick Henry. It's the fact that you get a positive game script where you take the ball out of his hands because they need to try to pass to catch up, and that's right. the position we need to be able to lean towards.
No, I absolutely agree with you, and it's really, when you watch Frank Gore, we were watching live and the guy I was sitting with said he's always falling for it. He's always getting positive yards. And last week, that was a big thing in a close game. And that is the kind of guy, too, even if Derrick Henry doesn't go and start busting out 20-plus yard runs, he's still the kind of guy that's going to get 3-4 yards a gain if you allow them to keep him in game. So I agree with you. If you find ways to get up early and take him out of the game, I really don't know that they have a way to get back in it against the defense like ours, especially a passing defense like ours. I don't think they have the tools to get back in that.
No, I agree completely, and I think that there's a handful of things that we're going to be able to kind of see as the game goes. I think we're going to know relatively quickly what this game looks like and how it's going to turn out. But hopefully, in our case, we see the Bills get an early lead, lean on it, use our big mammoth offensive line, hand it off to our running backs, and use all of them. I do expect to see all of them active, especially because right now I have to assume that Patrick DeMarco is not going to be available. So that's going to change the kind of running plays that we see here or there. I don't know if we see maybe some additional tight ends active and see some movement there, more 2 tight end sets, more tight end wing motion coming off of there versus the traditional 2-back set that we've seen a fair amount with DeMarco playing. So I'd be curious to see how we see that combination going, but I do think that's the key to this game.
Yeah, it stinks that DeMarco's possibly out for a game like this where I want to see the running backs. I think that his snap count, if he was available and healthy, would go up in this game. Not a ton, but slightly, especially if we're playing to keep the lead, things like that. But it stinks, but I have total faith that Daboll's going to be able to adjust. I know a lot of people said, oh, just throw Lee Smith in there. Eric kind of detailed in some tweets early on when we signed Lee Smith. He's not the best H-back. That's not what he's done the best in his career. So I don't know. I think a lot of people just think, oh, just throw X player in there and they'll be able to do it. I don't know that it works like that. So I think that Dable will kind of have to scheme around not having DeMarco in the offense versus, oh, we'll just plug X player in. I don't know that they've done a lot of that. Maybe they haven't practiced and worked on it, but I think we're going to see, kind of like you said, just different styles of attacking without DeMarco.
Yeah, right or wrong, it does limit Dable's playbook. Obviously, we hear it on Twitter all the time. It's plays that other people think they should throw out completely anyways, but an awful lot of those 100 yards that Frank Gore got against the Patriots were with Patrick DeMarco leading the way. So he does play a valuable role here, and we would be limited without that. It doesn't mean we can't run the ball still, find single back sets to be able to run successfully out of, maybe some single back 2 tight end stuff. We could still be good at that to be able to go forward.
Yeah, man.
Any parting thoughts before we head out here for the week and wish all of our fans well?
Yeah, no, I do think, one person responded when I said that how important this game was. They said, oh, well, every game's important. And yes, that is true. Every game in the NFL is important, and you can't even sleep on the Dolphins. Obviously, those games are going to be important too. But I really can't stress the importance enough of this game. We talked about it prior to the Patriots game. I thought the Patriots game was more important to the fan base and the emotional state of the fans. If we could have won that, what it would do emotionally for you. But as far as what the totality of this season and building to be a playoff team and kind of getting that record in the right direction, I can't stress the importance enough of this game. And I really do think it's a tone setter. And that's really kind of my thought going into this. And that's what makes me nervous, because we talk about, is this the same old Bills? And we've seen kind of feelings of the same old Bills here throughout some of these games this season and close games against bad teams. And if they can come out and really just win this game and dominate this game, I think it kind of puts to rest that kind of Billsy tagline and same old Bills. If they can really put it to this team and put them away, then I'm done talking about the same old Bills.
I agree completely. I think that if you told me there was a possibility we were going to go into the bye week 4-1, I would have signed up for that immediately, and so would every other fan that we have here. So that's what we have in front of us. We have a chance to come out here, take this game seriously, be able to take the bull by the horns, go into the bye week 4-1, get healthy, get everybody right, come back out of the bye with the full squad, everybody ready to go. Obviously, go pick up Stephon Diggs at the airport since he's there waiting to be picked up and added to the roster. Any exciting things like that, I think that it's a fun way to be able to step into this season. I think you're right that it's a way to really see what kind of team we have in front of us.
Absolutely. So where can people find you while you're retweeting my Zay Jones conspiracy theories?
Besides the time that I spend retweeting all of the Zay Jones theories, you can find me on Twitter at Greg Thompsett, GregTompsett, having a good time with Bills fans, being able to joke around and look at things, and every once in a while being serious about football.
Yeah, and you can find me, Aaron Quinn 716. I think I'm a good follow, so follow me and find out. If you don't like me, you can mute me or unfollow me. I don't really care, but I like to interact with fans, so come follow me.
No, I besides the fun that I have giving Aaron a hard time, I can confirm he's a fantastic follow, and you guys will enjoy it. If you're out there and you're enjoying what we do,
right,
give us a rating, give us a review, tell somebody else about it, tell your neighbor, help us out, have a good time. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.